Communities are usually pretty tightly knit, it seems likely that someone at the synagogue would have known who was killed, but they had absolutely no information, no inkling about whose corpse was discovered. So it stands to reason that it was not a Jew. So why would the skeleton of a Gentile be discovered in a synagogue's basement? This is a valid question, and it certainly deserves a valid response. But it seems that those who were investigating the matter simply dismissed it for reasons that only they will know. Also, why did it say that the investigators could not determine its sex for certain? This would be a relatively simple task for a medical examiner. Yet it seems that even this was not given proper attention. Now, one cannot say that with any certainty that the remains were that of a child who was ritually murdered, but it does seem like a matter that still needs proper attention by police investigators. Merely a month later, something else interesting occurred in 1989.
On May the 1st, 1989, viewers of the Oprah Winfrey Show, a very famous television program, were in for quite a surprise. Oprah interviewed a young Jewish girl named Rachel, who testified on the program that her family had for several generations engaged in the practice of ritual murder.
On the show, Dr. Rome cites, Oprah asked the woman, "This is the first time I've heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies. But anyway, so you witnessed the sacrifice?" Rachel responded, "Right. When I was young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant." When Oprah Winfrey asked if other Jews had engaged in such practices, Rachel responded, "There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my family." Rachel then proceeded to mention other relatives, doctors, policemen, council members, and so forth, who had also reportedly engaged in this cult activity. A year later, in 1990, Rachel again bravely stepped forward and admitted that this terrible deed had occurred, as noted in the March 1990 issue of Cult Watch Response. Recently, I had enough courage to share some of my story. I revealed that I am a Jewish survivor of a multi-generational family who practiced human sacrifice and cannibalism. It seems likely that if the transgenerational Jewish ritual murder cult has survived, that such actions would most likely occur in Israel, where many fanatical Jews reside. A few years later, in 1995, some Gentile children from Romania were found being reportedly kidnapped and exported to Israel. Israeli citizen Mahmoud Asadi was arrested for this. He was at one time former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin's personal secretary, according to the World Jewish Congress. Certainly, he would not have been acting alone in this matter, as it would be something that would require many people to do. Why would he be in Romania procuring Gentile children? Some have suggested that the children were to be used in occult rites by Jews. Again, this is a question that deserves our utmost attention. Reporter Adel Hamoud, writing in the major Egyptian newspaper Al-Ahram of October 28, 2000, said that young Palestinian children have been repeatedly found around Israel with their blood drained. He reported these startling findings in a full-page article called "Jews Make Matzos from the Arabs' Blood." Jews in Israel regularly demonstrate that they possess this ancient hatred. Recently, Israeli planes dropped bombs on a school for the blind in Palestine, and some Jewish extremists put a bomb on a school children's playground. Certainly, Jewish fanatics who commit such cruel acts are capable of ritually murdering children in Palestine as well. Romania, Germany, Italy, Poland, United States, Egypt, Syria, Portugal, Jordan, France, Russia, Austria, Spain. Nearly every civilization in the entire world has reported the crime of Jewish ritual murders. Has the entire world been involved in a massive conspiracy against Jews? Or have some fanatical Jews been engaged in a conspiracy against all non-Jews? Quite frankly, it seems to be the latter. Some Jews say that Jews are completely innocent. For instance, Jewish scholar Richard Po-Chia-Hsia writes in his book The Myth of Ritual Murder that Jews never use any blood, even that of an animal. On page 8, however, contradicting himself, on the very next page he says, "In medieval and early modern times, among Oriental Jews, the blood of circumcision was used for writing the Tetragrammaton on talismans." On that same page, Po-Chia-Hsia also noticed that the rabbi's responsa said to use dried goat's blood as a general medicine. This certainly makes it seem as if there was some relationship to occultism in the past. There does seem to be an ancient relationship between Jews and occultism in the past up to this very day. As surprising as it may be, the founder of modern-day Satanism, Anton LaVey, is Jewish. Also, Lord Egan, who was a leader of satanic cult, is also Jewish. If you look at the satanic pentagram with the demon Baphomet in the center, an imaginary demon from ancient times, you'll see Hebrew characters that surround it as well. In the current video, Faces of Death, you'll see an interracial cult which appears to be led by a Jew cut up a corpse and then have an orgy in its blood. Such sickness defies belief. Dr. Vladimir Dahl, who we mentioned earlier, was asked to write his book Notes about the Ritual Murders for the Russian government, and he mentioned many of the sick occult rites of the ritual murders of the past. Dahl was able to find out quite a lot about these acts. While his book was written long ago, there are still many relevant points that are still applicable today. He describes these terrible acts by hate-mongering Jews and the typical Jewish response. It was not just one group of people who have accused Jews of committing such deplorable acts. Jews were accused many times of that in courts by a variety of people. On the whole, it was not only their own confession in addition to other evidence, but there were such examples where the Jews were exposed and consequently had recognized themselves as being true. Just one such event should obviously be enough for people to acknowledge the real existence of such villainous human mutilation. But the defenders of Jews say something quite different. The confessions were forced by torture and therefore proves nothing. Assuming, however, this argument is true too, and believing all that was ever said and written on this problem in favor of Jews with respect to forced confessions, there is still one circumstance that will remain which has never paid enough attention. This circumstance not only remains as unexplained by Jews, but also is the proof of the crime itself. Namely, it is not doubtful that from time to time the corpses of babies who were missing were eventually discovered in such distorted conditions and with such signs of external violence that they attested to images of excruciatingly painful deaths. This is the kind of murder for which the Jews are accused. Also, the incidents of this nature exclusively occurred only in places where the Jews live. We must ask ourselves, in what type of circumstance can we attribute the renewed cases of babies who suffered painful deaths, babies who were carefully tortured up to the point of their tragic deaths, if an accusation is not fair? What reason can we invent for the villainous torture of a baby if it is not done for religious mutilation? The external signs on corpses indicate each time this is discovered positively that the death could not be accidental in any case, but intentional. It is obvious that these injuries sustained by the babies are deliberately done and take place over a long time. The whole body is poked or pricked. Then scraps of skin are cut. The tongue was often cut out. The intimate parts of boys are either cut out or the boys were circumcised. Signs of bruises from tight bandages put on and removed again are not uncommon. Often the entire skin has abrasions, as if it was burnt or had something rubbing against it. Sometimes the corpse was even washed, with it being discovered without any blood on it. Nor was there any blood on the undergarments or clothes, demonstrating that they were taken off during the murder and afterwards put on again.